my autographed copy of the book.
Oh.
This book came to me from a friend in the mail, and the author is Steve Miller, and the book is Uncopyable. And Uncopyable is really how to protect your business from anybody ever taking your idea and running with it. But before we get started, Steve, why don't you give them a little bit of your background, because it's kind of fascinating.
Well, I don't want to get into too much of my background, but I do come from the corporate background. So I like to say that my last real job, which was over 30 years ago, I was a vice president of international sales and marketing for a Japanese toy company. Okay, but if you're going back before that, then I tend to have a very eclectic type of experience in my background.
So you noticed something really important, I think, and I think you noticed that brands, they're just a product. It's really hard to stand out from another product.
Well, yeah, and in fact, here we are at CES, which is known for innovation, technology, right? And yet technology is kind of a double-edged sword for us. It tends to, we come up with great ideas with technology. It makes things easier to build, easier to design. You don't have to be a massive, giant company to be able to come up with new ideas nowadays. And so that, in that sense, especially here at CES, we're walking around and we're seeing fantastic new products and incredible new innovations. But at the same time, technology, because of the reasons why I was just talking about, technology makes it really, really easy to copy what somebody else is doing. So it's very difficult to come out with a new idea, a new product, a new service that you would have a very strong competitive advantage for very long.
So things like traditional things like patents and copyrights just aren't doing it.
It's not really the amount of time. In fact, the amount of time it takes you to get a patent, somebody's going to copy your product, and because it's an international game now, it's very hard to protect something that you've got.
Okay, so how do you start to think about making your work uncopyable?
Well, the idea is to start to look at it from a perspective of that you need to deliver something that's way beyond the deliverable, right? It's not just the product that you've got in your hand or the service that you're delivering to people. They might pay for that, but then you need to be able to wrap it in something else that adds something that would be very, very difficult for other people to copy. Let me give you a couple of examples.
I know you have some great examples.
Easy example, very, very easy example is very often I'll ask when I'm speaking at conventions or sales meetings or something like that, I'll often ask the audience, like, what is the most popular roller coaster in the world? What is the highest ridden roller coaster in the world? And you hear from a lot of people saying, oh, it's in Six Flags, or it's over in Japan, or some crazy roller coaster, things like that, right? And then if inevitably somebody comes up with
Coney Island on this one.
Yeah, Coney Island. I'm sorry. Yeah, forgot Coney Island, right? But the answer is it's Space Mountain, because
those little folks at
Space Mountain is just a roller coaster. Hate to break this to you, there are no kids in the audience. Well, my daughter's still a kid, but when you really think about it, that's all that Space Mountain is. That's all that most of those rides at Disney World or Disneyland, they're just roller coasters. But what they've done now is they've taken Space Mountain and they've turned it into a trip into outer space. That's what they've turned it into. From the moment you stand in line till the moment you leave the ride, everything is in outer space. What's funny is, and this happened to me one time, is that if like the ride breaks down and you're on the ride, well, everything stops and all the lights inside of Space Mountain turn on. And you start to look around and you realize
it's ugly.
it's ugly, but you go, it's just a roller coaster, right? And it's not even a great roller coaster, right? But
Right.
that whole idea of wrapping it in that experience makes that very, very difficult to copy.
Right, and we're seeing that even a new generation looking for more experience in all of their products.
Absolutely.
So Disney clearly knows how to tell a story around
the
the
gold
product.
standard. They really know how to tell a story. And also, the other thing that they add to it, which is another component, is the type of service that they offer. Um, you know, everybody, and here's something that I would say to every single company out there: is go look at your website and act like you're somebody who is coming there for the first time, and say, okay, why would I buy from you? What are the reasons that you're telling me? Well, number one, you're going to say is, oh, we have a great product. Okay, so does your competition, and we have the best customer service on the planet. Everybody says that, but what does that mean? Customer service doesn't really mean it's a vague generality. It doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Okay, so like at Disney, for example, sticking with the topic there, uh, Disney. There's one thing I noticed, that when it rains at Disney, all the people who clean up and things like that, they have a little squeegee that is on their belt. They walk around, and the trash cans at Disney have a flat top because they know that people, like women, want to put their purses on it, or people put bags on it, and go through it, right? Well, after it rains, those are wet,
Yeah.
but you can't see that they're wet, and so these people with these caretake, and I don't know what word they use from. They don't call their cast members, but
little mice.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. But they take these squeegees and they squeegee off the top of
Yeah.
the trash
Yeah.
cans.
And
See,
I
now
think
that's a service.
And I think that translates. Like, how many times a day do you get an email from a constant contact or something and it says, "Do not reply"? Why would you want to have a business that wouldn't let you reply somewhere?
That's a good example too. Is that we also then do stuff that we don't really think about. We think, oh yeah, I'm going to send an email out, and this email, we're not going to pay any attention to this email. So if somebody responds, nobody's going to see it. So we'll just tell them don't reply, right? Well, what kind of relationship is that you're building with these people? See, you don't want to do that. You want to make a relationship with them that they think is special. They think it's easy to do business with you, but at the same time that they're going to get something from you that they're not going to get from somebody else.
So let's talk about the tech industry
Sure.
and people that you think are uncopyable because they're doing it well.
Well, I think, and I should qualify when I say uncopyable. It's really hard to be permanently uncopyable, right? The idea is to make it last as long as possible. That's the idea. Is to be as hard to copy as you can be for as long as possible. All right. So the couple of examples that I would share. One is Peloton, right?
Great
I think
example.
Peloton actually. The way I look at them is I sort of look at them as like, okay, they have stolen the Harley Davidson model of doing business with people. Because Harley Davidson does not sell motorcycles. They sell community.
Lifestyle.
They sell dress in black leather, ride through small towns, have people be afraid of you. People get tattoos on their butts, and I think, and that's what they sell. So Peloton has sort of taken that from, they're selling exercise, but they're selling community. Right, you can get a nice
right.
bike.
I don't know if anybody's been over. They're in the sands, and it's
Yes.
just the most fun.
Yeah, we're gonna go check them out today.
Music, models, it's just great.
And but it's about community, and
yes.
it's about pushing yourself with groups of people. So it's more than just the bike.
No, I know people who swear their whole fitness regime is based on Peloton, and they're not inexpensive, those bicycles.
Oh no, and that's the other beautiful thing is that when you can do something like this, you could,
right.
Disney, their prices just keep going up. They do fine. Peloton is another example. Another example is right behind us here, is the booth right behind us. Local Motors has a autonomous vehicle called Ollie, right? Well, Local Motors, Jay Rogers and his team over at Local Motors, they're fantastic because they're not just building cool,
autonomous cars,
autonomous cars, or road racers or anything like that. They have an amazing ability to use crowdsourcing. See, so they're more of a crowdsourcing company than they are a company that builds cool products.
In what way? In that, like, everybody can.
Yeah, they go out to their to their crowd and they'll say, "Oh, hey, we're trying to design this," or we have this idea about designing a car for Pizza Hut to deliver pizzas. Well, what ideas do you have to help us do that? And then as they take that idea further and further, they keep going back to the crowd, going, "All right, well, how would you design this? How could this
Yeah.
be put, into a vehicle?" And the crowd helps them do that.
But it's funny though, just like tech tools have helped us give us the ability to copy things faster, community is so ingrained, and community tools and a book is great, but the minimum bar to entry is a website, a Twitter account, and a LinkedIn page, and an Instagram page.
Right.
And you're a small company with a big idea. When in the creative process do you feel you sort of have to build the story around the product,
Oh,
just
at the
from
beginning.
the beginning?
At the very beginning. Yeah, you have to build. Storytelling is what it is really what it's all about. I mean, all these examples I've shared with you really are great stories. Is what they are. That's the main thing. Is that they're really really great stories. And Nordstrom is a story. Their big deal isn't just that you can return a product and get your money back, but it's also world-class customer service, right? Well, I said customer service tends to be a vague generality, but you know how Nordstrom has been able to actually define that, and the way they define it is through their stories. Is the stories that you hear, that you read in books, you hear from speakers, you hear from your friends, like, "Oh, I just had this amazing experience at Nordstrom."
But compare that to, has anybody ever had an unpleasant experience with Amazon? I mean, they're pretty good.
They're pretty good. Yeah.
Like, it's hard to be an dissatisfied customer. On the other hand, you're watching the tug of war between brick and mortar and
Yeah,
Amazon.
absolutely. So the customer experience there is a little bit different because you're doing that without engagement of people, at Amazon.
I talk to my bot now.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And that, I think, there are ways to engage that aren't people intensive anymore. We had a digital money conference yesterday where robo-chats are the new investors, I mean,
Yeah.
they are managing your money. And the reason the bar is lowered for people to be inclusive is there's not a human in sight.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how
and
does that figure
chatbots,
in?
you're seeing that with AI that's coming in. It's handling customer service now. In fact, IBM has predicted that 85% of all customer service interactions will be